Thanks for tuning in to Flashback Horror Movie Podcast, Year in Review. This is your host, the Prime Minister of Sinister, Don Nice. And on the other end of the line is the one, the only, Triple P, the Pajama Pants Playa, John Grande. John, how are you this fine, probably cloudy and rainy Friday morning?
I am fantabulous, my dude. I was at the Space last night. My friends have this little room that they rent out, and they call it Jam Space.
Oh, nice.
And they're like all in a band, and
cool.
they just rock and roll all night. And man, my voice is killing me. Like we were covering old songs last night, some Sabbath, some The Doors.
Nice. Do they charge to get in and all that?
What's that?
Do they charge for people to get in?
No. They're just the coolest dudes ever.
Nice.
I think they rent it for a month. I don't think it's a lot of money either.
Gotcha.
And man, we were rocking. We were rocking out till 2:30 in the goddamn morning.
Oh man, so you're struggling.
No, not really, man.
Good,
I mean,
good.
I enjoyed the shit out of it. I really didn't have much work this week, so I
Nice.
was thrilled, to be honest. Yeah, I pretty much did something every day this week because work was so limited. So it was really nice to there are times like this where I'm like, oh man, why do I work?
Right.
You kind of think about it, but I mean, it was really fun.
Cool. That sounds like a good time. Is that something they
Oh,
do
it totally was.
on a monthly basis, or?
Yeah, I mean,
Whenever they can.
I go with there as much as I can. I love those guys. They're just the chillest. They'll order pizza. They'll always have drinks and stuff, and it's a really chill time. They're all huge, into the music I'm into, the 60s, 70s, 80s kind of
nice.
Rock and roll era, stuff like that. They're not like most kids my age are really into grunge.
Sure, yeah.
If they're into rock and roll, but these guys are they like Marley, they like the Beatles, they like Elvis, shit like that. So that's more up my alley, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll era.
Nice.
I can't get enough of that shit, man. I know a lot of people would probably be like, "Oh man, that's old," but I don't know. So some of the movies I like, so it's okay.
Right, exactly. And so are the people that you host a podcast with, so that's cool.
Yes, that too.
So before we get into the year 1981 in review, I know you and I talked. You've seen a few things this week. I've seen a few things. What do you want to talk about? I've only seen a couple things, but I don't know how much you've gotten into this week. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, we can run through these quick. I actually, on Wednesday, I got to see, this is the only one that's non-horror. On Wednesday, I went to the movies with my friend Jasmine. And we saw one of the movies that is up for Best Picture. We saw 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
It's with Frances
McDormand.
McDormand, I believe is how you pronounce her name.
Yeah, McDormand.
And Woody Harrelson. Sam
yeah.
Worthington. Yeah, really good cast. And it's basically about this woman who her daughter was raped and killed, and she decides to put up these 3 billboards outside of her, where she lives, and basically it's calling out the cops for not getting the killer.
Right. And
it's basically the rest of the movie is her dealing with the town's rebellion against her, the police enforce, they're kind of against her.
Right.
And it's really about how much shit she can take before she cracks. And it's phenomenal, man. I mean, if anyone's seen Fargo, they know how great of an actress that woman is.
Oh, yeah.
And man, I mean, this movie was really good. I mean, one of the best movies, period, I've seen in a long time, because it focuses on hate. It focuses on just about every kind of subcategory you can be. It talks about religion a little bit. It talks about race a little bit. It talks about male versus female a little bit. And it's a little bit of everything. And the whole message of the movie I always liked, because it's basically anti-hate. It tells you at the end of the day, don't hate. You'll never solve anything with hate. And I just loved the message of it, man. I love that movie. It was one of the best I've seen in years.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer for this, and I do want to see this for sure. Like you said, Frances McDormand, she's pretty much great in everything that she's in. Woody Harrelson's really kind of turned his career around playing different types of roles. But, they kind of play this movie off as a black comedy. Do you see that?
I mean, there's humor in it, but it's not a comedy at all.
See, I didn't think it would. I mean, it just kind of confused me. But I think Sam Rockwell looked really good in it too. I mean, he looked like he was kind of a crazy motherfucker.
Yeah, man, holy shit, like, he's fucking crazy. And there's a scene in this movie that, like, holy shit, he's like a cop that lives at home with his mother.
Oh, jeez.
But, like, he's like, oh man, it's I can't ruin it. It's so awesome. I totally recommend you watch this with your wife if she's interested in stuff like this, because it's a movie that anybody can enjoy. It's great.
So it's still out at the theaters then?
It is out by me, yes.
Okay.
There's like 2 or 3 theaters still playing it by me, so I would check, because we actually, me and my friend Jasmine have class that day.
Oh, okay.
And she was like, oh man, I think it's playing outside, right next to the school. And I was like, oh shit, because she lives a little bit far.
I gotcha.
So I was like, yeah, sure. So yeah, we went for dinner and a movie, and it was really nice. So
now, is this just a friend or is this a lady friend?
Oh, it's a lady friend.
Oh, nice.
It's not. I mean, we're not like officially,
sure. Yeah, I know.
Whatever. But yeah, we've been hanging out and talking
cool.
and stuff. So
that sounds like a good time. Nice. I'm glad. I'm happy.
It was, man. It really was. It was a nice night.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely want to check that movie out. Like I said, I saw the trailer and I thought it looked great. So, and we hardly ever get out to the theater. I mean, with my kids and everything, we hardly ever get a chance to actually go out. So maybe I'll have to wait for it to come on DVD. But I definitely wanted to see it. But anyways, yeah. So anybody who wants to see that, definitely check out the trailer on YouTube. So it looks pretty good. And I don't. What's weird is I don't usually. I'm not really usually interested in award-winning films because they're just really not up my alley usually. But this one, like I said, looks pretty good. So.
Yeah, totally. When it's dealing about real stuff, for sure. But what have you gotten to see, my man?
Well, you and I were just talking, and I don't want to get into this, but I want to mention I got a chance to see the movie Possession, and with Sam Neill and Isabella Gianni. And the reason I want to bring it up is because you had mentioned weeks back that you liked it and you saw it, so I wanted to bring it up. But we're going to talk about it during this episode a little bit, so I won't get into that. But the other one is the Lucio Fulci classic. Which isn't really a horror movie. It's more of I guess you would call it like a drama thriller, is The Devil's Honey. Have you ever seen that?
I have not.
Are you familiar with the movie at all?
I'm not really, no.
Okay,
I've never
cool.
even heard of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because it's not very widely known, but it just came out on Blu-ray by Severin Films. So it's really an interesting movie. It's about a girl who she falls in love with this guy, and it just shows them having a good time riding a motorcycle, so on and so forth. And they actually wreck the motorcycle, and the guy falls and hits his head, and he's taken by ambulance to the doctor, and the doctor can't save him. Well, the girl, who is absolutely beautiful, and hold on just one second, I'll let you know what her name is.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And come to find out that I think this woman actually is in like the Italian government right now.
Really?
Yeah, and of course it doesn't say it on here. But anyways, we don't have to get into it. But anyways, she's gorgeous. She kind of goes crazy, and she goes after this doctor, right? And she kidnaps him, and she kind of holds him in this house for a long time. Anyway, she like sexually tortures him and makes him eat dog food and all kind of weirdness. But yeah, and it's really it's always for Fulci it's definitely over the top, but it's always over the top for Fulci. That's not anything out of the ordinary. So anybody who's a Fulci fan will know. But it's a really interesting movie. And John, if you haven't seen it, I bought the Blu-ray, and I actually have a DVD-R copy of it, which is a really good copy. So, and I have a whole shitload of stuff to send you if you're interested. I'll send you a list, and you can tell me what you have and what you don't have. Anyways, I've been meaning to send it for months. But anyways, it's a really interesting movie. The chick's hot, and it's fucking bonkers. So definitely check it out.
That sounds awesome. Is that pre like the trilogy?
No, actually, this is from 1985.
Oh, so it's after the trilogy.
Yes.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know. I know. He made a movie in the 70s called The Psychic, and it's before the trilogy. And I was like, oh man, like I seen The Psychic and I really enjoyed it.
I've never heard of that.
Of course, he made Zombie after that. And
right.
But I'd be very interested to see host the trilogy. That would be really cool.
Yeah. Which actually we're going to be talking about 2 of those 3 films today, I believe. They were.
Yes, we are.
So yeah. But yeah, so it's just a really interesting. You know what I mean? It's not an award winner or anything like that. You know what I mean? He's not going to win any awards for this movie, but it's kind of batshit crazy, and it's just a fun watch. So anybody out there who wants to see kind of a hidden Fulci that not a lot of people know about, look for The Devil's Honey. And like I said, it was just released on Blu-ray by Severin Films. So and it's relatively cheap. It's like, I don't know, $14 or something like that. So anyway, what else did you get a chance to watch? Anything fun?
Yeah, I watched a couple more. I watched The Cloverfield Paradox, and I watched The Midnight Meat Train from 2008. Wow. The Cloverfield Paradox I thought was a really cool little movie because I had watched, like I was saying, I watched the original Cloverfield and the second one the previous 2 weeks, so I was interested in seeing this new one, what's going to happen in this new one.
Right.
And it's basically just a space adventure movie, kind of in the vein of Event Horizon, where, one by one, each member of the crew gets picked off somehow.
Oh, cool.
And then at the end, they kind of try to tie it with the other movies, and I thought it was a little bit kind of unjustly shit on. Yeah. I thought it was a fun movie. I think people were really pissed because it wasn't straight up horror, and it wasn't straight up like as good as the other 2 movies. But I thought it was a good movie because honestly, that whole series I kind of like because each movie is so different from the last, but they all work in their own way.
Yeah,
like the original is a Godzilla monster movie in New York City. The second movie is like a psychological thriller that takes place underground, and John Goodman's going batshit in it, and I love it. And then Goodman's this new one is just a space adventure that tries to kind of tie up all the loose ends. And I don't know if it does or not. I mean, I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's confusing and shit," but like, I don't know. I think if you could just watch it and enjoy for what it was, it's definitely a good watch.
Yeah. Actually, we talked about that in the last Lost episode. People who don't know, we did an Alien episode last Friday, and there were technical issues, so it was garbage. Anyway, so we talked about this. So, and Ryan Snyder, who is a fan of ours, we had him on the show, and he talked about this movie. So, and it sounded much more interesting. And the way you talk about it being more of an Event Horizon, that definitely makes me even more interested than I was before. But I think that people shit on this movie because I think they were pissed that the last one wasn't a monster movie, so this one had to be a monster movie, and then it wasn't a monster movie again. So I probably think that had a lot to do with it, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people just want to see that monster again. They want to see the first movie again.
Right. Just go watch it.
And it's like, I understand those people because obviously when you get a sequel like with Friday the 13th Part 3 and 4 and so on, it's always you get Jason again, you know. Well, I guess not with Part 5, but I still love Part 5.
Right.
Screw the haters.
That's right.
It's basically Jason the whole movie. You don't even have to know it's Roy.
That's right.
But I don't know. Like, I think people just want to see the same shit over and over. But I appreciate the fact that it's like, oh, they're all connected, but they're hardly related. I love that. They're all like blood relatives. I enjoy that. I just think that's a little bit clever to do in this day and age when there were 8 Saw movies. There were, it's just, 3 Hostels. It just keeps going on and on and on. And it's the same shit over and over. It's monotonous. And with these Cloverfield movies, it's the exact opposite. It's always trying to do something new and inventive.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Like I said, that makes me want to see it even more. So yeah, that anybody who hasn't seen that, it's on Netflix, right? That's what it's free. I mean,
it is. It's only on Netflix. I tried to watch it not on Netflix because I don't have Netflix right now. So I was like, oh man, like my friend Brandon ended up coming over and we ended up. He was like, I'll sign into my account.
Nice.
So yeah, that's how I got to watch it.
Cool. The other thing I got a chance to watch, the only other thing I got a chance to watch is I purchased the Scream Factory collector's edition of Carrie, and sat down with my wife and we watched that this week. And that movie, I mean, it doesn't disappoint. You know what I mean? It's just as good every time. So I guess, most people who are listening to this podcast definitely have seen that movie. And if you haven't, it's a classic, so you definitely got to run out and see it. Sissy Spacek, John Travolta, William Cott, classic. So, so yeah, we really enjoyed it. My wife had never seen it before, which it's hard to believe, but she'd never seen it before. So we sat down and checked it out. It came on like a Tuesday or something, and we just sat down and I think it was Tuesday actually. Yeah, we sat down on a Tuesday night and watched it. So broke the routine a little bit and watched a little Carrie. So she's like, "That wasn't scary at all." I'm like, "Well, shut up, you know." So yeah,
it's enjoyable though, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I've been telling you these movies aren't really scary for 25 years. No shit, you know. So anyway, so
it's that. How was the transfer? I would be interested to know.
Oh, I mean, just incredible. You can't. I mean, it's just pristine. You can't tell that it's a. I mean, other than the way that they dress or whatever, that you can't tell it's a 1970s movie at all.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I have that on Blu-ray, but I think I don't know if it's Anchor Bay Blu-ray, but like it's not the special edition. Like I got it for like $3.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's
really
the one I had.
cheap.
Yeah,
I love that goddamn movie, man. That's one of my top favorites of all time. I fucking that prom scene. It's basically the whole movie is just a build up to the end.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
And nobody has the balls to do that anymore, man. Like De Palma killed that movie.
Yeah.
It's just building and building and building until that bucket pours blood on her, and that's when all hell breaks loose. And I love that, man. That prom scene is one of the greatest in horror history. Like I wish we actually would have covered that on I think we did the top scenes episode.
Yeah,
that's one that I definitely would have up there high. Like I think that was an awesome. Like had we done a top 10 instead of a top 5, that would have been on the list for sure.
I agree. You know, and one of the things I noticed in the rewatching the 37th time or whatever it was is that De Palma had no problem slowing down the pace on purpose, which is totally different than the way things are now. You know what I mean? So, the hate, if there's any hate out there for this movie, not that I've experienced a ton of it, but that was probably it. You know, people from, younger people, I don't even want to say from this generation because, some people even from our generation or my generation probably think it's very slow, where they follow the string up to the bucket. And, you know what I mean? And he did that shit on purpose. You know what I mean? He fucking Hitchcocked it. You know what I mean? Which is exactly that's exactly what he intended to do. You know what I mean? That's his biggest influence. So, yeah, it's just a fantastic, fantastic film. And like I said, it's just as good, the 20th time as it is the first time. That end scene, too, boy, that scared the shit out of me as a kid. Where,
holy shit, man, I love that. I remember when I was a kid, that scared the shit out of me too. I never saw that coming.
Yeah, and according to commentaries and things that I've heard, that's where they got the end scene in Friday the 13th. They came up with it from thinking about Carrie. So, that was another one that scared the shit out of people, me included. Friday the 13th. So, you know what? I'm guessing I probably saw Carrie after I saw Friday the 13th. So, probably
that's the same thing with me. I saw Friday the 13th first.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Carrie's a classic, and the Scream Factory Collector's Edition is definitely worth the purchase. There's interviews in there that have never been released before or are brand new. So, it's definitely worth checking out, and it's relatively cheap too. I think I got it for $14. So. That's kind of my cutoff. That's
awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of my cutoff around $14 or $15, unless it's something really, really good. So I figure I get it at that price at some point.
Awesome price.
Yeah. So, anyways, what else did you get? Did you get one more in?
Yeah. The last one I watched was The Midnight Meat Train.
Oh yeah.
Based on the short story from Clive Barker and starring Bradley Cooper. Honestly, it's a really solid movie up until the end. It's one of those movies where I think the ending, like, I'm usually one to say, don't let the ending hinder something, but like the ending of this movie fucking ruins, I think, the entire thing. Have you ever seen it?
I did. I don't know if I saw the whole thing. I saw bits and pieces of it. I know for sure back when it first came out, but haven't seen it since. Isn't Vinnie Jones in it too?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about it, to be honest with you. I knew it was Barker, and I knew Bradley Cooper was in it. It's kind of early Bradley Cooper, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Bradley Cooper, like pre-Hangover.
Gotcha. So what? I don't even remember the premise.
It's a pretty good movie. I mean, it's basically about this guy, and he's a photographer. It's Bradley Cooper. He's a photographer, and his wife kind of hooks him up with this like super important photographer lady, and it's Brooke Shields actually. Oh, wow. And
That's
he
right.
brings her all
Forgot.
of his best stuff, and she's like, I think, oh, this is all horrible. I don't think you have any talent. She says, unless you can find something a little bit more gritty and raw, then I don't think you should really be the right guy for this.
Right.
And basically, one night he's kind of, on the train, the midnight train, and he kind of witnesses a murder. And he starts taking pictures of it and basically brings it back to her. And she's like, oh, man, I love this. This is great. She says, bring me more of this. So
Chicks
he
are
basically
crazy.
starts taking pictures of this guy that's murdering people every night on the midnight meat train. And and he's trying to figure out too at the same time who this guy is, what his motivations are. All the people around him kind of realize that Bradley Cooper's slowly but surely going a little bit nutty himself. But it's a really good movie, to be honest. Like if you can get past the ending, it's a really good movie. But like I said, man, that ending, oh man, like, they really had something there, and they just ruined it. The last 10 minutes of the movie, just like horrible choices. But I won't ruin it for anybody that would want to see it. It is a really good hour and 20 minutes, and then the last 10 are a little bit rocky, but it's a solid flick for sure.
Yeah, I think Clive Barker is he's kind of polarizing, don't you think? I mean, some people just absolutely love him, and some people are just like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? And I think there's everything in between. In a lot of his works. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if I don't know how loosely based it was on the short story. You know what I mean? I don't know how much they stuck, but I just find that a lot of people are really polarized by his stuff. People who absolutely love Hellraiser, and then there's some people who are just like, no, I didn't really care for it. You know what I mean? So that's pretty interesting. I definitely want to go back and check that out, because I thought it was something different. But when you started talking about it, I remembered it. Remembered those bits and pieces. So that's another one that I got to go back and check out. It's hard nowadays for me to go and listen or watch newer movies. You know what I mean? Unless someone really gives me a good recommendation, it's hard. For some reason, it's hard for me to even sit down. And I hate that. I hate that the fact that I'm that much of a an '80s snob, I guess. But I guess the truth is the truth. So, but yeah, I'd like to go back and check that one out too. I only got about 1 million movies on a list that I want to see again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's the problem. The list is never ending.
I know, right? Which is a good thing, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess so in many ways.
Right. So, anyway, so you ready to get into 1981?
Yeah, man. You want me to lead us off?
Yeah, man. Yeah, go ahead and start off. Talk to me.
All right, awesome.
How are we gonna do it? I
randomly-
don't. Yeah, we're just kind of randomly picking stuff, right?
I mean, I composed this list. Okay, so we'll I guess we'll preface this for the viewers.
Sure.
We're obviously not going to talk about every single horror movie that was released that year. That would be next to impossible, or it would take about 20 hours. So
Right.
neither of us have that. But I've got a list here about almost 30 movies, I think. Yeah, I don't remember. I counted when I did it, but I don't really remember what the hell the number was.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But yeah, man, we're gonna cover as much as we can, as important stuff as we can. So if you want to let us know if we missed anything, you can. But I promise it might have been on the original list, which had over 50 something titles on it.
Right.
That just shows you the amount of horror movies that came out this year, and really. If you look at this list, man, there's a lot of quality stuff. So We've got a lot of good stuff to talk about. I guess we will lead it off with a little movie that was made by the great John Landis. And It is one of 3 fucking werewolf films that came out in 1981.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite of the 3 as well. It is American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that one,
man,
Don?
dude. Absolute classic. And it's so funny to think of John Landis as the guy who, you know what I mean? Only because, when you think John Landis, you usually think, there's comedy, and there's some comedy in this movie, but this kind of, this movie was it's just a classic. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And it was a kind of a groundbreaker. You know what I mean? With some of the special effects and the stuff that you saw. I really like this movie. I'm surprised that, David Naughton didn't do a ton of other things that were really well known. I thought he did a really good job in this movie. I love this movie. I had a script idea. I used to write scripts. I don't know if I ever told you that before. But anyways, I used to write scripts, and this movie gave me the idea for a script. I mean, that's how much influence this movie had on me and at the time, you know what I mean? And, I love the setting of this movie. I love the fact that it kind of takes place. It's a country. It's out in the country, and I don't know if you want to call it the country there. But, I don't know. I just love the setting. I love at the beginning, I should say. The beginning is the biggest part for me when they get attacked, and and I don't know. I love the interaction between him and his friend, or his dead friend, or whatever, however you want to look at it. I just think it's a classic, man. I love. This is probably one of my favorite werewolf movies. This and one of the other ones from this year are my favorite werewolf movies of all time. I don't know. What do you? I remember seeing this on cable too the first time, so it was kind of heavily cut, and then I remember seeing it on VHS, and it made a little bit of a difference. You know what I mean? So, but what about you? When do you remember seeing this?
I believe I rented. This is one I just rented from a Blockbuster or a Hollywood Video or something like that. And man, I'm right with you, man. That opening, like 15 minutes, is just some of the best stuff you'll ever see in the genre. I mean, I love it. You have these two friends, and they kind of go to this pub, and I always fucking love the name of the pub. The Slaughtered Lamb
yeah.
was the name of the pub. And there's actually a pub in downtown New York City called the Slaughtered Lamb.
No shit.
And I've been to it, and it's
cool.
amazing. It's literally like a replica of the one in the movie.
Oh, man, that's sweet.
Yeah, except the people are very nice in there instead of unlike the movie where they're not very nice at all. Yeah, so they're basically really standoffish, and I just love that they kind of warn them of the mark of the beast and stuff like that, and they go out, and one of the friends gets mauled and killed, and the other one just gets bit. And then it's kind of slowly but surely his turn to being a werewolf and growing to deal with it. And it's just one of the best horror movies. It's probably my favorite werewolf film of all time because it's has so much to like about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's got a great soundtrack, the classic Bad Moon Rising song from Creedence Clearwater Revival, possibly one of the best horror movies for effects of all time.
Yes.
Of course, the transformation scene, and I always was afraid that scene where he looks at his hand, and his hand like stretches and stretches and stretches. Like, that gives me anxiety, man.
Yeah.
Like, that is some terrifying shit.
Yeah. He looks like he's in pain.
I love that his friend keeps showing up, like his dead friend, and every time he shows up, he's a little bit more decayed.
Yep.
He's like, so when are you going to kill yourself?
I know, right?
And he's like, what? He's like, I don't want to kill myself. He's like, yeah, you kind of have to, so all our souls can go to heaven. And, like John Landis added a little bit of humor, and it helped, and it worked. It wasn't overkill, it wasn't beating you over the head. It was like just little subtle hints of relief, and I think it really made the movie even better than it probably was if they had stuck with an all-out serious tone, which the movie is mostly serious, but I do like those little hints of humor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, you can't have a John Landis movie without some comedy in it. But I think that character, I think it's played by Griffin Dunn, I believe that guy's name is. That character is definitely you hear people talk about horror movies and how they need a little bit of comedy here and there just to relieve the tension in the audience, and he definitely does that. You know what I mean? It kind of takes you out of the what that guy's going through. And you talk about his hand growing, and he just looks, the acting he does right there is really good. He's in pain, you know what I mean? You see it in his face, and it makes your hand hurt, you know what I mean? It makes your hand hurt watching that. So
absolutely.
John Landis, I mean, he will always be known as a master of horror, and pretty much based on this movie, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so.
Yeah, so absolute classic. Yeah, if you haven't seen this, something wrong with you. So anybody who's a horror fan definitely has seen this movie and agrees with us that it's a classic. I mean, we'll probably get to talk a little bit about the other werewolf movie, but I guess we'll go ahead and move on a little bit. I'm having a hard time deciding what I want to talk about, man. I think let's. I don't want to start with all my goodness, so let's go ahead and start with a really good movie that I like a lot. And a lot of people consider this, and it's surprising to hear this, but some people consider this the best slasher movie of all time. And that's the movie Just Before Dawn, directed by Jeff Lieberman. Are you familiar with that movie? I'm sure, right? I'm sure you've seen that.
I am very familiar with that movie and Mr. Lieberman. He has made some of my favorites, including Blue Sunshine, which is a really underrated movie from the 70s.
Yep, and Squirm with worms. And he's a very interesting dude. I've met him before, so he's a pretty interesting guy. But what do you think about this movie? Are you a fan? I don't think we've ever talked about this movie. Are you a fan of this slasher, or you just kind of think it's middle of the pack?
No, I'm a fan of this slasher movie, man. I mean, I always really loved the cover of this movie, and I always really liked that. And I know this is probably everybody's probably like roll their eyes, but really, it's a movie that it has an opening kill.
Yes.
But then after that, it goes about an hour without anybody else getting killed. It's basically, like for people that have never heard of this, which I would hope that people have heard of this.
Yeah.
It's basically another like slasher movie in the woods.
Right.
But it's freaking, I love it, man. It has a slow pace, kind of that slow burn to it. Yeah. George Kennedy's in it. Yeah. I remember George Kennedy being in it. This is one I have not seen in a long time, but I remember it being a lot of fun, man. I really enjoy these kind of backwoods slasher movies and stuff like this. And this one's a little bit different from if you think about The Burning, because you have a lot of boobs,
sure,
and stuff like that. But this movie I think it's more subtle. And its approach, and I think it really works.
Yeah, I think Jeff took it a little more serious than they did with The Burning. You know what I mean? Like, he wanted it to be a serious movie, which doesn't surprise me. That I've met him, and I would know that that he would want it to be taken seriously. I mean, he considers himself a real filmmaker, so that's really I don't like saying that, but you know what I'm talking about. You know where I'm coming from with that. But yeah, this movie is like you said, it's got George Kennedy in it, which I thought there's a pretty funny story about George Kennedy, which I won't go too long, but he rides a horse in this movie, and he had it written into his script that they weren't allowed to film him getting on or getting off the horse, because he had a hard time getting on and getting off the horse. And, he's like a big dude, you know what I mean? He's like a big macho guy, so he didn't want them to film that, so I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, this is, I don't want to give too much away, but, there's, the killer is not, I mean, it is what you think, but there's kind of a twist to it, so anybody who hasn't seen this, there's definitely a twist to who the killer is, and, there's, the cast is great, it's got Chris Lemmon in it, who is, oh my God, what's his first name? His dad's name, I can't remember. The old guy, I can't remember his name. Anyways,
Jack Lemmon?
Jesus Christ, thank you. It's Jack Lemmon's son, and he's in this. So that, they kind of used him, for the name's sake. And George Kennedy, obviously, they wanted him in there for his name. So, because at the time, I mean, George Kennedy died in like 1989, and no, I'm thinking of somebody totally different. He died in 2016. He was 91 years old. But anyways, but yeah, this is a great movie. This is kind of an early slasher that you could see where they were like working out the kinks. You know what I mean? Which to me really kind of adds to the ambiance of the movie. You know what I mean? He was trying to be serious, but yet it was still early in the slasher genre. So definitely check it out. 1981 was the year of the slasher. So if you're a slasher fan, we're talking about the right year. John and I both know that this is a huge year for slasher movies, and it kind of propelled everything else that came after. So, anyway,
yeah, and it's amazing to think about this one, because at the same time, it, like you said, all the kinks weren't worked out yet.
Right.
Like that's why I think it's even more interesting to go back and rewatch something like this, because now where all the tropes are kind of poked at and made fun of,
right.
These tropes weren't even established at this time. So it adds that different dynamic for you to go, okay, this is leading up to what this movie did,
right.
and you can kind of draw your own conclusions as to how they got there. But
right.
Man, I love movies like this. I have not seen this in a long time, though. I would like to go back and rewatch it. I'll see if I can get my hands on a DVD on Amazon or something.
Yeah, I think you can get it pretty cheap now since the Blu-ray came out. Before the Blu-ray came out, the DVD was ridiculous. It was like $100. But the Blu-ray came out and they dropped the like $10 or something like that. So you can definitely find it on Amazon. So
yeah, okay, yeah, I'm definitely gonna give a look for it, because I'm totally interested to give this one a rewatch.
Cool. So what's next on your list? Which one do you want to talk about?
Okay, so there really is not too much bad stuff on this list that I'm looking at, but I like to get the bad ones in there just to get the laughs out, man. So let's talk about the one of the classic horror movie posters. I'll say it's a classic horror movie poster. Other than that, the movie itself is really not the greatest, and the movie I am talking about is Blood Beach
Oh
from, of
man,
course, 1981. Have
nice.
you ever had the disprivilege of seeing this movie?
To be honest with you, I have never come across a good copy, so I've never seen this movie. I actually bought when I went to Days of the Dead in July. I actually bought a DVD-R copy, and I
Mhm.
got it home, and there's nothing on it.
No
I swear to
way.
God, I was so excited too because it's a movie I've been wanting to see for years and years and years. And I mean, I believe it's on YouTube, but it's such a garbage picture that I could not sit for an hour and 20 minutes or hour and 30 minutes, whatever it is, and watch it. So you have seen it? Was it a good copy that you saw?
Yeah, it was, man. I actually, I don't know who released it. I think it was out on DVD for a little while.
Really?
It was out of Print Quick though, or
Oh,
whoever
of
released
course.
it. I'm not too sure. Somebody can check my history on that, but I'm really not too sure. But I don't, unfortunately. I would send it to you. I don't have it anymore. I actually sold it back to a Suncoast, I think, when they're going out of business to get some store credit and just buy them
Yeah.
out of other shit.
Right. Right.
But because the movie is horrible. No, I mean, yeah, the copy I watched, I don't remember it being too bad. It's basically, for people who don't know, it's a movie that if you see the poster, you know what kind of movie it is.
Right.
It's basically a kind of Jaws ripoff, but the whole gimmick is that the monster is not in the water, the monster's in the sand. And if you go on the beach, just basically, the great tagline, yeah, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, you can't get there.
Right. Right.
I always loved that tagline. I thought that was really funny. And it's basically this weird monster that's kind of under the sand. It's picking off people one by one. I believe John Saxon's in this
Yeah,
film.
John Saxon's in it.
Yeah, prior to the
Friday
classic
or
Nightmare on Elm Street, and
yeah.
he's playing the sheriff character, I believe. So I always thought it was kind of funny. This little bit of the precursor to that, which obviously that's a lot better than this. But yeah, there's some. I just remember there's a scene where this guy's kind of trying to rape this girl,
Mm-hmm.
and the monster kind of comes up and let's say he gets him in a specific place.
Oh,
But it's so, I don't know, it's so poorly done, man.
cheesy.
Like the whole movie is just so poorly shot. But I mean, it is one of those movies that I think you can get enjoyment out of because
Right.
it's so bad.
Right. Did you watch it with friends. Or those
Yes, I
kind of
would
things?
totally say if you have friends with good senses of humor,
Yeah.
I would say give it a whirl.
Yeah, I was so disappointed when I brought the DVD-R home, and it was just I bought like 5 of them, and it was the only one that didn't have the movie on it. I was so disappointed. I think I only paid like $3 or $4 a piece for them. So yeah, I couldn't be too upset, but I did. It's just a movie that I've been wanting to see forever. Like I said, the one on YouTube is just horrible quality. So I couldn't. I mean, and I just couldn't do it. You know what I mean? I'm not really a picture snob. I mean, I can pretty much I grew up with VHS, but this was so bad I couldn't even watch it. So yeah, I would definitely like to see it. Just and like I said, it's got John Saxon in it. You know what I mean? I mean that dude is he is prolific in the amount of movies he's done. So and I pretty much like everything. I mean, Black Christmas, Cannibal Apocalypse. You just can't go wrong with John Saxon. So I definitely would like to check it out someday. Maybe somebody will. What they probably wouldn't be able to do a Blu-ray because they wouldn't be able to find the prints and stuff. But it would be sweet to see it at least on DVD, at least DVD quality.
Yeah, definitely. It's a poster I've wanted for a
Oh,
long
yeah.
time. I just can't find the right price or
Right.
anything yet. But that's a poster I'm totally going to get down the road because I
Nice.
just love it.
Yeah, it's a great one. Let me look here. Like I said, there's just so many. Let's talk about one that scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Let's do it.
And this movie, the end of this movie gave me nightmares. And that is Evil Speak.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, with
I don't know how I knew it was going to be that one.
Did
I
you?
don't know why I knew that, but I knew it.
yeah, it's a movie that stars Clint Howard, Ron Howard's brother. If anybody, you should know who that is. But it's about a kid who's at a like a military school, and obviously he's picked on, and he finds out that he's like a computer nerd, and he finds out that there's a demon in the whatever he's doing on the computer, and the demon, he uses the demon to get back at the guys that give him a hard time. And what's his name, Stanley Cooper Smith or something like that, he's at this military academy, and he plays the best, and I think this was his first starring role, but he plays the best nerdy. It's like real, you know what I mean? A lot of times the nerdy people in the movies are kind of, they're good looking, or you know what I mean? So they just do their hair different to try to make them look bad. Clint Howard actually plays a pretty good nerdy dude. But what do you think about it? I people probably laugh at me when I say it scared the shit out of me. What do you think? Do you think this movie was remotely scary?
No, I 100% agree with you, man.
Okay.
I mean, what you have with this movie is like a classic revenge flick.
Yes.
And you're right. Clint Howard is so good as the nerdy because he's not over the top,
Right.
but you totally believe that he is this nerdy character. And the whole black mass computer and stuff like that,
Right.
getting revenge on the ones that bullied you your whole life. I mean, I love this movie. I think this is a really underrated one. And dude, for anybody who doesn't think this movie is scary, I'll point to one specific scene involving a bunch of pigs.
Yes,
and
that's what I'm talking about. Scared the garbage out of
holy
me.
shit, right? Like, I don't want to ruin it for people,
Right.
but like, holy shit, man. That is a scary ass scene. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I had nightmares for the longest time. I mean, I remember having nightmares at home and nightmares at my grandparents when I stayed, went and stayed at their house or what, I mean, I just remember waking up with sweats and, it was just, and this was after Friday that I saw Friday the 13th and everything. And this may have been, one of the first movies I saw after that. But, what was the bad guy? Richard Mole played the demon guy in his.
Yeah, wasn't he from That 70s Show? Didn't he go on to be in that?
Richard Mole? I don't know. Did he? I never watched that show.
I believe here. I'll look it
played.
up. But
He
I
played.
believe he went on.
He played Bull in Night Court.
Did he?
Yeah, if that helps you out at all. And what was his name? Like Father something or other. Father. What is it? Let me look. Oh, Father Esteban. That's and that's the guy. And I guess at the beginning of the movie, I forgot to mention this. At the beginning of the movie, there's this monk, and they kill him because they think he's doing magic or whatever it is, black magic. And so they the church people get together and they kill him, and that's kind of what happens. There's something going on under the school and blah blah. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be honest with you, but I didn't really care at the time. When I was a kid, it just scared me to death. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just one of those. It's another one that's kind of a lost. I mean, it's out on Scream Factory also, if anybody's interested in that. But it's kind of one of those. It kind of gets. It's definitely not the top of the year. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of gets stepped on a little bit. But it's definitely worth a watch. I mean, for sure. Even if you have to rent it, on Amazon or whatever. You know what I mean? It's definitely worth the watch. Like I said, scared the garbage out of me when I was like 10. So. Maybe 9 or 10. So if you're a 9 or 10-year-old, rent that son of a bitch.
No, I totally agree, man. I love this movie. Like this, I think this is a really underrated one, actually, that I think more and more people should talk about. Like, I was really happy when I saw that one on the list. I was like, oh shit, man, I bet you Don has got some shit to say. I'm not surprised. I felt like you liked that one for sure.
Yep, classic in my opinion.
Total classic. Total, like, if you get your hands on it, give it a watch. Like, Scream Factory released it?
Yep, I have that release.
Then, that is awesome. Totally, anybody who has not seen Evil Speak, give that one a watch because it is friggin' awesome. But moving on here, I have one that I always kind of wanted to be better than it actually was. And it's a little bit obscure for this year, but it does follow in the kind of vein of the year of the slasher, and it is a movie called Night School. Have you ever seen Night School?
Oh man, I don't. Let me just say this: if I've seen it, I don't remember it. I've seen I think they're just releasing it again on Warner Archives, but no, I can't remember it. But I would like to see it.
Yeah, it's one we can kind of gloss over because it's one that I've always wanted this movie to be a little bit better than it was, because I think the idea was fantastic. It's basically these girls that are being picked off by this killer, this unknown killer, and the gimmick is they're all being decapitated.
Okay.
That's like this killer's mojo, I guess. And basically what they start to realize is they all attend this night school, and of course they're all in the same class. And it's basically one by one them getting picked off and trying to figure out who the killer is in this kind of crime investigation slasher movie. It's a lot better. I mean, it's not as good as it sounds.
Right,
Like I remember watching and being like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. And the one thing I would say this movie does suffer from, if you're going to go in and watch it, really not much gore or anything.
Okay.
Like maybe a few shots of blood. And you're probably like, what? Like they're decapitating women. Don't they have to show? A lot of it is off-screen kills.
Gotcha.
Pretty weak in that department. But, I mean, if you like psychological thrillers, I would say watch this over if you're a slasher fan.
I remember, I think I remember seeing some of this. Is there a part where a guy cuts a girl's head off while he's riding on a motorcycle? I think.
Yes.
I think. Okay, I've definitely seen bits and pieces of it, but I don't remember a whole lot about it. But you know what, man? You know what's really fun is finding old '80s movies that you either have only seen once or have never seen before. I mean, it's like I don't know. It's like kind of like Christmas morning for me. You know, what's this? I've never seen this. Well, you know what I'm saying? It's, you know, because I've seen so many movies, it's fun to find something that I haven't seen, you know, more than one time. So that's another one. I've been seeing that they're releasing it on Blu-ray on, like I said, Warner Archives. So I don't know. I'm not sure they're going to give it the best, you know, I don't know, value. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to redo everything, every, you know, frame and all that stuff like Scream Factory does. But it's you know, it's probably worth a purchase. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's not something that you see very often. You know what I mean? So I want to check it out. I don't think it comes out until March, but we'll have to wait and see. But don't you think that's fun, finding something you've never seen before that's old?
Absolutely. That's the whole point of the genre.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was talking with Ryan a couple days ago, and he was telling me, oh, you know, I just watched Motel Hell for the first time, and I was like, wow, like that's I'm surprised to hear that, you know, because he's a diehard horror fan like us.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, he said, I listen to so many shows, you know, he says that I always get ones that I've never seen. Yeah. And I was like, that's the beauty of this genre, man. It's like, it's honestly like you never can run out of flavors to try.
Right. Right.
Like this movie, like, yeah, it's in the year of the slasher, is really not much boobs, blood, or mayhem in it, but like, it's just another one you can try. It's like you know, maybe you'll like it more than the others. Maybe you'll hate it more than the others, but it's just the fact that it's another thing you can try. That's what adds the kind of oomph on top of it. Yep. I think it's a really good. It's a perfect genre to do that. It's probably the only genre you can do that with because I mean, comedies are all designed to make you laugh. You know,
right?
And there are different ways to make you laugh, but I think there are a lot more ways you can try to scare people.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of the brilliance of this genre.
Right, right. Yeah, comedy is sometimes very specific, but fear is, you know, it's a pretty wide thing. You know what I'm saying? So I think, I agree with you. You know, you can find an old comedy from the 60s, but it's probably not going to make you laugh unless you were there then. You know what I'm saying? But fear is definitely universal, so I agree with you there. So yeah, those are two good ones right there that we just talked about because they're not very well known. I mean, you know, maybe to the hardcore fan they are, but you know, that's something that the casual fan can definitely go out and look for. So the next one, I'm going to go ahead and talk about a movie that actually wasn't on your list, but it's a movie called Eyes of a Stranger. Are you familiar with that movie?
I am not. I've never even heard of it.
Okay, well, it has a pretty good cast. It's got Jennifer Jason Leigh and Lauren Toos. I think that's how you say her name. I believe she was in like The Love Boat. I believe it was she was
cool.
She played Julie on The Love Boat. If anybody's familiar with that, and she, you know, she's a cutie. You know what I mean? She's definitely a cute girl. And Jennifer Jason Leigh is like super young in this movie. I mean, she's probably, I don't know, maybe 16 or 17. So, anyways, the story is. And I will tell you, it's a very basic story. It's about a rapist and murderer who's stalking people, and Lauren Toos plays a reporter on the local news, and you know she is afraid because she's taking care of her sister because something happened to their parents. And, and I will tell you this. There's a scene at the very beginning of this movie that, a girl is leaving a bar and she's a waitress and her boss says, look, you might not want to walk alone. And, because this rapist and this murderer is out there. And she says, look, if I can handle it here, I can handle the walk home. It's not that far. It's only a couple blocks. Anyway, she gets home and this guy starts to call her and, starts talking shit. And he's got this crazy voice. And he's like, I know you're not wearing a bra. And, I'm going to fuck you and all kind of shit.
Shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty... it's pretty hardcore. It seems real. It seems realistic. You know what I mean? Instead of saying, have you checked the children or, are you alone? He's like, I'm going to fuck you. And, it's pretty creepy. So anyways, I will put this scene up against any scene in any horror movie ever. Slasher movie especially. John Carpenter, anybody. Wes Craven, anybody. This opening scene... It probably goes on for maybe 10 or 12 minutes, which is kind of a long scene, but it is the shit. Okay, I just watched it again recently. It's scary, it's suspenseful, you don't know what the hell is going to go on, and then I don't want to give a whole lot away, but there's gore, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's really, there's a cute girl, and, she's not wearing a bra. You know what I'm saying? So, and the guy that directed is Ken Wiederhorn. Do you know who that is? He's the guy that did Shockwaves.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We talked about Shockwaves actually too.
Yeah. So I mean, and he really didn't do a whole lot, other than those two movies. I mean, he did a few things, but nothing. He did. Actually, I think he directed some of the Freddy's Nightmares or something like that. So not a ton of stuff. But anyways, I'm telling you what, man. That opening scene and the rest of the movie's really good too. Don't get me wrong. It's actually a very well made movie. And the only difference is they don't have a problem showing you who the killer is. So you know what I mean? Usually there's a mask involved and so on and so forth, and you actually kind of know who this guy is right off the bat. But I will tell you this: it is good shit. If you haven't seen this movie and you don't own it, I think you can get it for like $3 or $4 on DVD on Amazon. It's definitely worth a watch, and I think that you'll agree with me that this movie should be definitely should be more known than it is.
Yeah, man. I mean, just like we were just talking. I mean, shit. You just gave me one I have never seen or heard of, and I will definitely want to give a watch now.
Yeah.
That I love those. I love opening scenes like that set that big tone.
Absolutely.
Like they're like the movies like The Faculty is one that always comes to mind. When they kill that teacher in the beginning, I always love that opening scene.
Oh yeah.
Like I love those opening kill scenes where you're just like, all right, set the tone for the rest of the movie, Scream and all those movies like that. Like they always have that classic opening kill. So yeah, totally. I'm totally down. And I'm a huge Jennifer Jason Leigh guy, especially in her early days.
Yes,
so I will totally be wanting to see that one for sure.
I will tell you, and I'm going to give you a warning. Ken Wiederhorn directed Shockwaves and this, which I'm a big fan of Shockwaves. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's award winning or anything like that. But he did also direct Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Yeah, right. So I mean, it's not all good. But this movie, I think, I'll be honest with you, this is better than Shockwaves. This movie, this should be a classic in my opinion. It's not, but it should be, and I think it ranks right up there with anything that was done this year, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, but it just didn't get the run as all the other movies did. And I will say that it was more. It seemed more like a TV movie most of the time, but there was some good gore, and I'm trying to remember if there's any nudity. I don't remember if there's any nudity specifically, but you know what I'm saying. So there's a little bit of gore. There's chicks running around with no bras on. So you kind of get the boobs and the blood, and you definitely get the mayhem in this movie. So definitely check it out if you get a chance. Like I said, $4 on Amazon.
That is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I will have to check that out for sure.
Nice.
Okay, so moving on here. I guess we will dive into one of the Lucio Fulci films that we have on this list, and I guess we'll start chronologically. This movie came out before the third one. It is the second in, what is the trilogy called again, man? I always blank on the damn name of that trilogy.
I'm drawing a blank myself, dude. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay. Well, basically, it is the second film in the trilogy that I can't think of the damn name of. It is The Beyond from 1981. Don, what
Yes.
are your memories with this one?
Um, well, I will have to say that it's the Gates of Hell trilogy, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah. Um, I will have to say, and a lot of people are probably going to crucify me for this. This is probably, of the three, my least favorite. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like it, but it's my least favorite of the three. I probably can tell you that the reason for that is that I saw it much, much later. The other two I saw before I saw this one. I know, which I totally fucked that up. But it's not necessary. It's not necessary to see them in order. But I enjoy the movie. I enjoy the movie tremendously. Fulci is he's kind of an acquired taste, but you can't say when it comes to Lucio Fulci that some people are just fans of his, but for me, he's hit or miss. Sometimes I love what he does, and sometimes I'm just kind of like, meh, that was okay. This is kind of on that spectrum. The end of the spectrum is like I enjoyed it, but I didn't think it was. I really, really enjoy the other two movies much more. Do you feel that way too, or is this kind of second for you? Because I know your favorite is also on this list.
No, actually, I agree with you. This
Okay.
is of the trilogy my least
Okay.
favorite of the three, and I know people are probably going to be like, "Oh my God,
I know.
how could they even think that?" Because there are people that really consider The Beyond one of the top 10 horror movies of all time.
Yeah.
Um,
They consider it
but
his best.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Like, I think it's a good movie as well. I like the movie. There are things about it. Like, I always liked the girl that kind of had those white eyes,
Yeah.
like her.
Mhm.
And there's absolutely the classic Fulci stuff in this, like crazy kills out of nowhere and
Right.
stuff like that, and just all these weird kind of elements, especially in the hospital. The hospital scene
Oh,
always
yeah.
creeped me out.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I agree. Like, I think this movie. I think the difference between this movie and the other two is this one I have is a little bit harder of a time believing.
Okay.
Like this one, like
Makes
the
sense.
ending. Like, I know a lot of people love that ending, but like I never
Oh.
really did. I
No,
was
me
kind of
neither.
always like, well, I don't really know about that.
Right.
Yeah, I
agree.
know, but this is probably the most controversial movie on this whole list because I know you and I don't love it as much as most people.
Right.
But I'll be honest, like I said, I think there are a lot of great things about it, and I think it fits in right along with Fulci's, whole gambit. I
Yeah.
agree with you. He definitely is an acquired taste. But yeah, I personally I like this one. I just not as much as most people. I wouldn't put this anywhere near a top 10, top 20 list on anything. I just
No,
think it's
not
like
for
a
me.
middle of the road kind of movie
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about Fulci is he knows how to scare you. You know what I'm saying? Like what I think my problem with this movie is, John, is that Fulci and this is a weird thing to say, but I think he took this one more too serious. You know what I'm saying? Like the other ones were. This is. I know I'm not making a whole lot of sense here, but I think the other ones were more money makers, and this was like he took this as his opus, and that's kind of a weird thing to say, right? You know what I mean? But I think when people try too hard in the horror genre, it usually doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a big Friday the 13th fan. You know what I mean? And Friday the 13th was a moneymaker. I guess the exception may be John Carpenter's Halloween. But really, most of the time, I don't like my horror to be super, super serious. And, I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about it. I felt like this was much, much more story driven. And for me, man, I'm making myself sound like a really bad movie fan. But for me, my horror, I don't know. It's all about the boobs, blood, and the mayhem. You know what I mean? Man, that's such a weird thing to say. But that's how I feel about it. I feel like maybe he took it a little bit too serious, and that's why it's not one of my favorites. And it could have had to do with the fact when I saw it and all that good stuff. But I really do feel like he maybe took it a little bit too seriously. And like I said, he knows how to scare you, especially when you're 12. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you're a 12-year-old and you see a Fulci movie, you're not going to likely forget it very quickly. But I just couldn't get into this one as much as I got into the other two films. So
Yeah, I would agree 100% with you, and I think I actually think a lot of people would disagree with us on this because I think that the next movie that he made, the last movie in the Gates of Hell trilogy, he apparently has said in interviews, before he passed away, that movie was his answer to The Shining.
Oh, really?
So that was the movie he really was going all out trying to be serious with. This movie, I think it was just more like, let's just be batshit crazy, classic Fulci kind of stuff. And I don't know. I just think I like the other two better because it's like the other two are more linear. Like City of Living Dead is just like a zombie movie, really.
Right.
And then when you watch House by the Cemetery, which I guess we can get into since we've been dancing around it.
Let's do it.
And we get to House by the Cemetery, it's your classic haunted house movie with a little bit of a twist and turn towards the end. But I think the Beyond is just all over the place. Like I don't know what you'd classify it as. Like some would say zombie, some would say fantasy zombie. Like there's so much to it. And I think that's why a lot of people like it so much, maybe because it's so much different things in one. But I don't know. For me, I like the little bit more of the linear storytelling in City of Living Dead and House by the Cemetery.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's just go ahead and talk about House by the Cemetery. These movies were both made. Were they both released in '81? Do you know? I'm guessing they were, right? Or they wouldn't be on this list. But I mean, those are.
I believe so.
Yeah, those. I mean, that's insane to put these and how high profile these movies are out in the same year by the same director. That's pretty amazing, if you ask me. But anyways, House by the Cemetery is, and we've talked about it before. We've talked about the characters and how Bob is kind of annoying.
Worst dubbing ever.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? Maybe we shouldn't watch the dub version. But the movie has Catriona MacColl, who I've always found super attractive. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Which that remind me later in one of the movies we're going to talk about. I want to talk about how attractive a woman is. But anyways, also Catriona MacColl was born on my birthday, so October 3rd. So we have the same birthday. But anyways, I liked her as a character, a little over the top. Her character. What was her name? Lucy or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. But this movie is another one that really really scared me. And I didn't come to these Italian movies until a little bit later, maybe in my mid to late teens. You know what I'm saying? So I did find this movie very scary at points. And one of the best parts about Fulci, and maybe it's not just Fulci, but the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s movies is they didn't have a problem with silence. And silence is fucking scary in movies. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not used to it. And I think that's one of the things that he does pretty well in this movie, especially is he doesn't let you know what's coming with the music. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things I love about his movies. Just in general. You know what I mean? That slow pace. That I'm like the next guy. I enjoy a good fast movie every once in a while too. But my horror movies, the slower usually works better for me. It lets my mind do most of the work. What do you think about that?
I absolutely agree, and I think that this movie, like you said, it has that slow burn, and it builds tension really throughout. And it doesn't do like what all his other movies do until probably the ending.
Right.
You have this kind of little ghost girl show up and warning. It's basically the story is this writer he's a doctor, Dr. Boyle, and his family. They're heading to this house that they bought. It's a house by the cemetery, and basically they're getting these little warnings from this little ghost girl, and she's telling them not to go. And then slowly but surely, shit starts to happen in the house, and Catriona MacColl thinks she's losing her mind, and it's a really, really awesome movie because it's honestly, it's like, I said this about Fulci too. It really is the poor man's version of The Shining. Like but at the same time, I'd say it's one of my 20 favorite horror movies. Wow. I actually had this on the list because I just love it so much. Yeah, nice. There's some amazing kills in this movie, and there's also just some random scenes in there, man. Like there's a scene where this woman, I don't know her damn name, she shows up and I don't know why. It's just so random in the movie. She has the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen.
Oh.
And she's just like, oh, I'm here to help around the house and shit. And she just stays around. It's so bizarre. And then there's a scene prior to that, though, where you see this mannequin that looks just like her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always like,
yeah.
what the fuck was that? Like, did the mannequin, like what was that? Like, I
Right.
to this day don't even know.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of charm that Fulci has, where it's like, I don't care about why. I'm just like enjoying it because it's like something you'd see in a dream.
Right.
Like, oh,
right.
that mannequin would be hot if it came to life, and then does, and it's like she's in the movie, and I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, man, I love this movie, and this is another one with a great opening kill.
Oh, yeah.
That opening kill of the couple in the house.
Yeah.
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 They're fucking around, and then she turns the corner and gets the knife through the back of her head and out her mouth.
Yeah.
And then dragged away, and then you get that classic House by the Cemetery score. I love
Yes,
that
very
fucking
good.
score.
Yeah.
Do you have that? Could you possibly play that?
Oh, I don't.
Oh,
But I can look it up. I can look it
if
up.
anybody's hasn't seen the movie, just play that score, man. It is so haunting.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I think that the lady that you're talking about played Anne. She was like the babysitter or something like that. And her name her name is Ania Peroni. And she was in she's been in some Dario Argento stuff like Tenebrae and Inferno and things like that. So, you know what I mean? She's been around. But yeah, I mean, I think the one great thing about this movie is it plays itself as, like you said, as kind of The Shining. You don't know if it's real, if it's a haunted house, if there's ghosts. You know what I'm saying? You're not sure for most of the movie what's going on. And like you said, I think it just adds to the scariness. It adds to the interestingness. Is that a word? Of this movie. You know what I'm saying? And I as much as I love City of the Living Dead, this movie has a lot more going on. You know what I'm saying? It definitely. You know what I'm saying? To get you to wonder what the fuck. You know what I'm saying? So if you're into if you're into a thinking movie, this could definitely be on your list. If you're into artsy, maybe Suspiria type movies, which I love Suspiria, you might want to go with The Beyond. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would
Yeah.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
And City of the Living Dead, like you said, is more of a. I mean, there's a little bit more to it, but it's definitely like a zombie type movie. So I mean, and that's Fulci, man. He did it all. You know what I'm saying? He did. I mean, I just told you about a mid '80s thriller that he did. You know what I'm saying? So he could do it all. And he gets a bad rep from people. You know what I mean? But and I'm sure he was very hard to work with and all that. But he was definitely he's definitely another one of those geniuses. And what's sad is that people outside of horror fans have no idea who he is. You know what I mean? Everybody knows who Wes Craven is. Everybody knows who John Carpenter is. But how many people really know who Lucio Fulci is outside of the horror genre? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a shame, but you're right. He covered the whole gambit, and this is like, to be honest, and I know a lot of people will probably be go crazy about this, but this is my favorite Fulci film by far.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Zombie Flesh Eaters, or Zombie 2, or however the hell. There's so many titles to that.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. That's probably most people's favorite. That or The Beyond.
Right.
But I'll be honest. If I had to pick from those four, Zombie, City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, and this movie, I would take City of the Living Dead in this movie. So I just think I enjoy the slower paced classic kind of approach. Like,
me too.
Like in City of the Living Dead, man, when that scene when they're like under the ground and the zombies start
just coming out,
swarming them.
Oh yeah.
And that music's playing. It's like dun, 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 dun. I freaking love that fucking shit, man. Like that is why I love horror. Like that, and Fulci's kind of like shooting all angles at it, and Catriona McCall's eyes start bleeding. Classic stuff, man. That's just great shit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this trilogy is definitely worth the watch. I mean, I'm sure most people have seen Zombie, especially if they're zombie fans. But if you haven't seen these movies, definitely go out. And again, you can get these movies dirt cheap on DVD, so there's no excuse. Shame if you haven't seen them. So definitely go out and
definitely
buy
shame
those.
if you haven't seen these.
No doubt. All right. So yeah, good stuff. The two our two favorites. of this trilogy are so fun to watch. Anyway, let's talk about a TV classic. Let's talk about a TV classic.
Let's do it.
And I think you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. And I remember this because I remember watching this on TV in 1981. That's pretty crazy. My grandmother, I wouldn't say she was a horror fan, but she liked maybe like true crime stuff and things like that. So she let me watch this with her on TV. I remember the old tube television, and that is the I don't even know what you want to call this type of movie. It's a classic, I can tell you that, and that's Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. I love this film. What about you?
Oh man, this is one of the classic TV horror movies of all time for sure.
Yeah, Larry Drake plays a mentally handicapped guy who his best friend is not a little girl. I mean, I don't know she's like 6 or 7 or something like that. And the story starts with them out, picking flowers out in the field, and they're walking by a house, if I remember correctly, and I can't remember if they go into the house. They do something they're not supposed to. I can't remember what it is. Anyways, and the little girl gets mauled by a dog, and Bubba, his name's Bubba, picks her up and takes her to her home and says, and is holding her, and they're like, "What's going on? What happened, Bubba?" And all he can say is, "Bubba didn't do it." And I remember that. I remember, dreaming about that. Bubba didn't do it. Bubba didn't do it for a long time. And he gives the girl to her mom or whoever, and he runs away. Well, the town people, Charles Durning is one of them, don't really like him because he's retarded. And they fly off the handle and think he's the one that hurt the girl. They think she's dead, and they go after him. Well, Bubba runs home to tell his mom, Bubba didn't do it. And she says, okay, we're going to play a game, hide and seek, and you hide in the scarecrow where, and they won't be able to find you. So anyways, they're out there, and they actually find him on their property hiding in the scarecrow. I mean, you can see his eyes. I mean, I remember that, his eyes, he was just so afraid. And they find him, and all these guys, I think there's 4 or 5 of them, then they all get their guns out, and they point it at the scarecrow, and they get a call over the radio that says, hey, she's okay, he didn't do it, she was attacked by a dog, blah, 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 blah. And they decide to kill him anyway. And after that, a scarecrow starts picking him off. I mean, they shoot him 100 times, and after that, a scarecrow starts picking these guys off one by one. Now, I will tell you that this doesn't, as much as this sounds like a slasher movie, it doesn't remind me of a slasher. That's not what I think of when I think of this movie. I consider this more specifically revenge, even though, and there's a little bit of a supernatural element to it, obviously, if they killed him and so on and so forth. But I love this movie, man. It's early 80s TV at its best. It's not, it doesn't seem like a movie. It doesn't look like a movie. There are a lot of different types of breaks in this because obviously during television programs you have to take breaks for commercials and things like that. But I love this movie. I mean, this is a classic. This is another one that was just released on Blu-ray a couple years ago. So you can watch it and see all the review or the interviews and things like that. I really like this movie. What about you? What do you think about it?
Yeah, man. I'm a huge fan of this movie too, and it's really like the first time I ever saw a movie with a killer scarecrow, I guess.
Yeah, it was a precursor for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and it really works because I think you're right. Like, I think this easily could have been just another slasher kind of thing, but it's not. It's kind of, I don't know if it's the pacing or I don't know if it was the direction the director wanted to go, but it doesn't feel like that. The whole movie just kind of feels like a whole misunderstanding because obviously the guy was retarded and they kind of take it out on him because, they're basically like, oh, he did it just because, let's not believe him. But, that's the unfortunate thing about it, that the whole thing's a misunderstanding. But yeah, man, I love some of the shots in Philby's Field in this movie. Just some really cool, I think for some reason TV films have such great atmospheres. and this is no exception. Like, I love the atmosphere in this movie.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it's a really underrated movie too. Like, I didn't even actually put this on my list. I was surprised that you brought this one up. I didn't even know this one was 1981, but I have it right here. I'm looking up. It came out October 24th in 81 on TV. It premiered. That is super cool. Could you imagine like something this cool coming on around Halloween time and getting to watch it with, like you said, you with your grandmother, right?
Yep. Yeah, my grandma.
That's so cool. See, like that shit doesn't exist anymore, man. You can't
agree.
like, there's no like, oh, there's this new TV horror movie. Let's watch it, Grandma. Like, that doesn't fucking exist. Man. It doesn't.
Right.
Those times are gone. I remember there are so many good TV horror movies from that around that period, like from the late 70s, early 80s.
Oh yeah,
like Satan's School for Girls.
Oh man,
fucking Crawl Space, which is a good one. Bad Ronald. Then I'd say this movie, and Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
Oh yeah, another great one.
We can do a whole episode on great TV movies from that time period too. Like,
no doubt.
There's like unlimited amount of them.
Yeah, and this is definitely one of them. I feel, in my opinion, this is probably the best horror television movie of all time. Yeah, just my opinion. The other ones are great. Bad Ronald's really good. That's early to mid 70s though, I believe, if I remember correctly, right? Bad Ronald, it was in the 70s. Yeah, I thought so. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like you said, it just has a different feel to it. You know what I mean? And maybe that was just the early 80s television vibe, you know what I mean? But it's definitely one worth checking out if you're into scarecrows. Some people really like scarecrows, and this definitely was the precursor to the killer scarecrow. So if you're interested, definitely go check this out so you can say you got this one under your belt,
Yeah, is this one out on and who released it if it is?
Yeah, it's out. I have it right here. It's out on Blu-ray, and you can get it on DVD also. And the company is VCI Entertainment. Okay, and it's really good. I mean, it's got great extras and things like that. It's got a production documentary, a Q&A with Larry Drake, Tanya Crow, and J.D. Fiegelson, who I actually met. J.D. Fiegelson, he's the guy who wrote this. He actually signed my Blu-ray. But the little girl is named Tanya Crow, and Larry Drake obviously plays Bubba. So there's a lot of cool, interesting things on it. They actually have like promos for the TV show when it was coming on. So like commercials for the movie. So that's pretty cool. I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, it's a good copy. I mean, it's you're not going to get it's a good Blu-ray copy. It's not I mean, there's probably not a whole lot of shit out there for it. You know what I mean? And most of the cast. I mean, Charles Durning's gone, and who else? Claude Earl Jones. You might know him if you saw him. He was on TV a lot as a kid when I was a kid, so a lot of people would probably know him from TV. So, but J.D. Fiegelson went on to do things like Chiller, which is a Wes Craven movie. And it was a TV movie also. So I mean, he did a few other things, but nothing that tops this. That's for sure.
Yeah, so, definitely not. Because Chiller, I remember Chiller being a really bad movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so I guess since we brought up Mr. Craven, there is actually a Wes Craven movie on this list.
Oh man,
I like you. I've been having a hard time deciding which ones we should talk about. I just keep scrolling. I'm like, just kind of shooting from the hip here. But Wes Craven had a horror entry in the year of 1981, and it is the Sharon Stone starred Deadly Blessing. Don, what are your thoughts on Deadly Blessing?
Overall, I didn't think it was a bad movie. I mean, but I don't think it's up to his quality. This movie has like Ernest Borgnine in it, and like you said, Sharon Stone, Susan Buckner, and also doesn't it have Hills Have Eyes guy.
Michael Berryman.
Yeah, Michael Berryman's in this movie, right? He's in this too, right?
Yes, he is in this.
I'm not a huge fan. I've probably only seen it twice. I just didn't. I thought it was kind of a lazy movie for Wes. I don't know. He was kind of trying something different. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was going from The Hills Have Eyes, and then he's in between The Hills Have Eyes and A Nightmare on Elm Street. So I guess I guess you got to give him some credit, for those movies. But I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of this movie. It never really scared me very much, although I don't like spiders, and there's a spider scene in this movie. It's pretty freaky. But other than that, I'm not a huge fan. What about you? I'll just ask you, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, this movie, it's funny because if you look at his career before this movie, it was really two exploitation classics.
Right.
You had Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes. And then this movie, he really, really changed gears
Yes.
with doing this kind of period piece almost, and, adding the horror elements to it. I think it was a good idea for him to kind of branch out of that exploitation, because the only way to do that, it's not just to make a slasher movie. It's not just to do another movie with a lot of blood and violence and stuff.
Right.
It's to do a movie like this, I think. Do something laid back, do something kind of mellow and not as much, down your throat kind of action or horror or gore or anything.
Right.
And I think this movie does that. It's very, very laid back. Like I said, I agree with you. It's really not one of his best, but I think it's a movie that was kind of crucial in his filmography because it was a way for him to transition out of those exploitation movies and into stuff like, A Nightmare on Elm Street and so on and so forth with that. Right. So I think this movie is important in his filmography. Like I said, though, it's not as good as those other things, especially around this time. It's probably the weakest movie.
Oh yeah.
In the first half of his, movie making. Like you compare it to stuff like, My Soul to Take. It's an all-time classic. But I do remember if there's anything I could say about this movie, of course the spider scene. I always really liked that with Sharon Stone and the spider crawling on her face or whatever, and the scene at the end. This is one of those movies that has one of the most insane endings you'll ever see. Like you never see it coming because the whole movie is the exact opposite of what this ending would suggest.
Yeah, it doesn't match.
Yeah, it's fucking bizarre. But I don't know, man. Like this is one I do go back and rewatch every now and again just because I think it's just so interesting that he tried. It's such a different animal from the rest of the things he would go on to do and the things he did before this. I think it's just kind of that one that sticks out like a sore thumb, but at the same time, it's just interesting to watch. I would definitely say this is like a little bit above average movie, but I go back and rewatch it probably a lot more than most people.
Yeah. I have the Scream Factory actually put this one out too. I actually have this DVD, and it's got Lisa Hartman in it too. If anybody from the early '80s knows Lisa Hartman, she was a hot chick back then. Her and Sharon Stone both. But one of the things thinking about what I know about Wes Craven and this movie is it makes tons of sense that he made this movie because his most of his childhood was he had a not a super religious mother, which I can relate to. But it's kind of a I don't know. It's kind of a knock against religion, maybe not necessarily faith, but religion itself. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of makes sense that he made this movie. You know what I'm saying? Even though it wasn't one of the stronger movies, like you said, in his filmography, there were worse, obviously, like you said. But I don't know. This is one of those movies that, for some reason, when I think 80s horror, I just don't think about this. You know what I'm saying? It's not one of the movies that comes to my mind, which is surprising because it's by Wes Craven, who has made some pretty beloved movies. But and like you said, I kind of feel like you do. I enjoy the movie. I've seen it numerous times, but it just doesn't give me that gut feeling as some of the other movies of this time for sure. But like I said, it's got Ernest Borgnine and Michael Berryman. Ernest Borgnine is awesome in my opinion, and Michael Berryman is, first of all, I've met him and he's a super, super nice guy. So and I love him in everything that I've seen him in. So The Hills Have Eyes. How can you not like him? So I don't know. It's definitely worth a watch for sure. It may piss you off if you're a religious person, or just because. Like I said, Wes feels a little differently than he did as a kid. He wasn't allowed to watch anything but Disney movies, and I'm sure you've heard all those stories, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I never put two and two together until we just started talking about it, and I just started thinking about the fact that it's got to be because of the way he was raised. So I don't know, pretty interesting, but definitely worth a watch for sure.
Most definitely.
Yep. Oh, I forgot it's my turn, isn't it? Let's talk about. I mean, obviously, there's some classics that we've talked about. You know, there's the Prowler. You know, we talked about the Prowler, Friday the 13th Part 2, and Halloween Part 2, and all. I mean, we've already talked about those movies because they're favorites. The Burning. You know what I mean? Let's talk about this one. We haven't talked about this one. We just missed a great opportunity to talk about it, and that's My Bloody Valentine. Have we talked about that?
Yeah, we actually did a whole episode on My Bloody Valentine.
No, did we?
Yeah,
jeez.
That's the one. That was the one thing when I started making the list, I was like, oh shit, man, we've actually done full episodes on Friday 13th Part 2, Halloween 2, like you said. But basically, like we could sum all those movies up easily for first of all, if you haven't seen any of the episodes, go back and watch them.
Right,
we go an hour and a half in depth on each one. And you know, we honestly we freaking love all of them. Halloween 2 is one of our favorite slashers.
Yes.
Friday the 13th Part 2 is one of the best of the series.
Right.
Amy Steele and her sexiness is just undoubtedly awesome.
Yes.
The Prowler is an all-time classic, really, really awesome slasher movie directed by Joe Zito. The Burning, of course. I mean, shit, man, you go on all day about these great slasher movies, but we actually have before, so I think that's actually funny. Like, and if you want to hear our in-depth thoughts, totally go watch those episodes.
Yep, and they're all slashers too, so that tells you, you know, if you know us, you know we're slasher maniacs. So let me look. I mean, you know, The Evil Dead is a great movie. I'm personally not a huge fan of the original Evil Dead. I mean, it's a good movie, but I'm not a huge fan. Let's talk about holy shit. Let's talk about wow, I don't know what to talk about. Let's talk about Dead and Buried. Are you a fan of Dead and Buried? Have you seen that movie?
I have never seen that movie. No.
Really? Dead and Buried's a good one, man. I mean, it's got a really, really good cast. James Fiorentino, Robert Englund's in it. If you can believe that, early Robert Englund. You know, after being Buck, he's in this. It's a really good, and they consider it a science fiction horror film. It reminds me of God damn it, I can't remember the guy's name. Stu Gordon. It reminds me of a Stu Gordon movie. Because it's very Lovecraftian. It's about a town of people who are committing murders so that they can turn the people into model citizens, I guess is the basic way to put it. James Fiorentino plays Don Gillis. He's a sheriff. I'm just going to go ahead and read you the plot and make it easier. Sheriff of a small New England coastal town of Potter's Bluff. In the film's opening scene, a mob of townspeople attempt to kill a visiting photographer. He's beaten and tied to a post, then set on fire. He survives and is taken to a hospital where he is murdered just out of sight of the sheriff and the doctor. Anyways, so the fact is that they take the people that they kill, and the sheriff doesn't know what's going on, and he has to figure out what's going on. This is a really fun, silly at times movie, but there's not a ton of gore or anything like that. You don't see a lot of gore. I think you see a couple sets of boobs or something like that. But it's just a fun. If you're a Stu Gordon fan and you like Lovecraft, that's kind of what it reminds me of. There's this doctor in town. It's actually the guy who comes and picks up the bodies. I can't remember what they're. The coroner. The coroner, he comes and picks up all these bodies, and there's one scene where a car flips over and it catches on fire, and the guy is still in the car on fire, burning, as they come up to the scene, and he's all charred, and they think he's dead, and they're talking about him, and all of a sudden the body just starts screaming, so I mean, I don't know. I like it. I think it's a fun little movie. I think it's kind of just a one-off. I don't think the people actually. Gary Sherman was the director of the movie. I'm not real super familiar with him, but I thought it was a pretty good movie. I thought it was, like I said, I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. It reminded me something of like I said of Lovecraft. I said Hitchcockian. I meant Lovecraftian. It seemed like something like that. So, if you're into Stu Gordon and Brian Usna, or however you say his name. This is probably something that you'll enjoy. So, but if you've never seen it, you probably don't have a ton to say about it. The poster is I don't know, like a. Have you looked it up? The statue coming out of the ground. Have you seen that?
I have not. I'll look it up though.
Yeah, no. And this was actually I failed to mention that this actually was a Dan O'Bannon Shusett creation. They created this. They had the idea for this movie. So, and
really?
Yeah, we just talked about it. So, but they didn't really have a whole lot to do with it other than that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think Ronald Shusett was one of the producers of the movie or something like that. But other than that, they didn't really have a ton to do with it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And I thought I had seen almost all Dan O'Bannon stuff.
Yeah, actually, on the poster it says the creators of Alien bring a new terror to Earth. So if that gives you any idea, yeah. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's another one you should definitely check out if you haven't seen, for sure.
Yeah, I will. I've heard a lot of good stuff about it. That's one I've actually heard of, and I've just never had the chance. I never got my hands on it really. Yep. But the next one I'd like to talk about is the one you were referencing at the beginning of the show.
Okay. I forgot.
We got to talk in depth on this because I am very intrigued to hear your thoughts, and it is Sam Neill and Isabelle Adjani in what I consider to be probably my favorite, or if not my second favorite of this entire year in review that we're doing of 1981. It is Possession. Don Nice,
wow.
What are your thoughts? You saw it for the very first time yesterday. I gotta hear it, man. What's going on?
So wait a minute. This is your second favorite of this year, 1981?
Probably, yeah, man. I fucking loved this movie.
That is so interesting, man. It's so funny how we can be dead on some things and totally opposites. I watched 3/4 of this movie yesterday and the other quarter of it today, and I have to say, although again, I found it very Lovecraftian in specific ways. The thing that threw me off, and as I was telling you, it may be because that's what the director, however you say that guy's name, that's what he asked for.
Yeah, I can't pronounce his name either.
Andrzej Zolowski. Anyway, maybe that's what he was going for, you know what I mean? And maybe he was going more for an art type of film, but there was acting in this movie that I thought may be the worst acting I've ever seen.
Wow.
By real actors, not just, not by people's friends who they made movies with. Obviously, there's worse acting out there. But Sam Neill does okay. He's some over the top. But there are two characters in this movie, one played by Isabelle Adjani and the other one played by Heinz Bennett. What the fuck, man? There's Heinz Bennett plays Heinrich, who is Isabelle. Okay, Isabelle. Maybe we should tell people what it's about. Isabelle Adjani and Sam Neill are a married couple. He goes away on a business trip. He gets a phone call, and she says she doesn't want to be with him anymore. He comes home, and she says that she's having sex with somebody else, and she loves somebody else. We'll get into a little bit more about that later. Anyways, Sam Neill comes home. Isabelle Adjani says, "Look, I don't want to be with you anymore." They have a child together, and she's not taking care of the child. They separate, and he finds out that she's sleeping with this guy named she's sleeping with a guy named Heinrich. So he goes to visit him, and this is the weirdest son of a bitch I've ever witnessed in a movie. He sounds he sounds and acts gay, but. And he like touches Sam Neill, who plays Mark, by the way. He touches him in a gay way, like he grabs his hands and makes him touch his chest, and he leans up against the wall and puts his hands over his head, and he talks. He has an accent because this is a German movie, I believe, or something like that. But man, dude, fucking what the fuck, man! The whole time I'm like, I don't understand what is going on here. Why is that dude so fucking weird? And, I thought, I was trying to think, maybe that's part of the charm, and that's why she fell for him, or I don't know, man. This movie, the longer this movie went on, and there are some saving graces in this movie, and I guess we'll kind of talk about that too. But Isabelle Adjani's kind of the same way. Everything's over the top, And I don't know, man. I just found it so weird. I didn't find her attractive, which a lot of people find her attractive. So that kind of, it kind of bored me, that, in that aspect. I don't know, man. What
It bored me. She wasn't hot.
Well, you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. You know what you
yeah.
expect from movies. You could see her naked a couple times or topless a couple times, but it wasn't anything to write home about. But this movie is just a jumble of not a whole lot, which maybe that's what makes it interesting to some people. You know what I mean? This movie kind of, in some ways, this is going to throw you off. For me, it made me think of the movie Martin, in the fact that you don't really know what the fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like most movies, you know what the fuck's going on. They might reveal it, but this movie is just like, I don't understand. Like, I understand that there was some kind of weird creature and so on and so forth, but it just, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about this movie. This was the first time I've ever seen this movie, so I'm kind of, my opinions and my ideas are forming as we speak, but I don't know, man. It just threw me off. I don't know if I'll ever watch this movie again, just because maybe if I get high. Well, I've never been high, but if I get high, maybe I'll watch it again. But you know what I'm saying? It's just one of them kinds of movies. Let's talk about from your end of the spectrum. What is it that you like about this movie?
Man, I really just loved this movie from the first time I saw it. Like I think for first off, especially because of, if you look at the year it came out, nothing like
Right.
this was being made at that time. And if you put that into perspective, I think that adds a lot. Like, this was the year of the slasher.
Right.
This and I'd say a movie like Evil Dead. I actually am surprised to hear you're not that big of a fan of the original Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm.
But those would be my top two for this year, actually. I just love that they were kind of like, yeah, I know you're doing all that slasher stuff, but this is our take, and this is what we want to do with this genre. And I love that they're both completely original and new movies. Like, there really are nothing like them that came before them.
True.
I'll be honest, I love Sam Neill and I love Isabella Adjani together in this movie. I think they really paint the perfect picture of the marriage that's crumbling apart around them. And I love the fucking scene, like 10 minutes into the movie, I think, where he wants her to meet him at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sitting at one table, and she sits to the table next to him, and it's like this perfect kind of like diagonal parallel shot.
Yeah.
And like, they can't, she is so heartbroken by everything that she can't even bear to look at him.
Right.
And Sam Neill just loses his shit, and he's like, talk to me, and all this stuff. And like, I love that because I think anybody and everybody has been there in their life before, where you kind of feel, and I think that's the whole play on the title of the movie. It's not really about being possessed. Like I recommended this to my friend Kyle, and he said, "Oh, I hate Exorcist movies." I was like,
Right.
It's nothing to do with possession or being possessed. It's about feeling the possession someone else has over you, if that makes any sense. She felt, I don't love this man anymore. I feel like he's overly possessive on me and what I want to do with my life. So she kind of obviously goes with another person who we don't find out who that is until about halfway through the movie. And when you find out what Miss Adjani is doing behind Sam Neill's back, it is one of the craziest scenes of my life, like I've ever seen in a movie. Like, I remember I turned this on late night one night, and I'm just sitting there. I'm all cozy. I'm pretty much about to go to sleep. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I'll get to see this some other time. Watch it all the way through, because it felt like more drama the first hour or so of it. And then you see why it's I guess classified in the horror genre. And holy shit, it doesn't disappoint. I don't want to ruin it for anybody who hasn't seen it, because it is a huge reveal. And I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when Don first saw it.
Oh my God.
That would have been really funny to watch. But man, like I know you said that Johnny, you don't feel like she did a good job and she was over the top and whatnot. And I could totally see where you're coming from. I just think it's the fact that when a relationship or when a marriage goes down like that, I think I'm able to say, like, that is a believable emotion to carry on and go on like that.
Yeah.
I feel for her, man. I feel for the character. And of course, the legendary, probably the best scene in this movie, just because it's so fucking batshit crazy, is the scene
Subway.
where Miss Adjani actually ends up having a miscarriage. And it's the aftermath of her getting this news, and she gets off this subway train and begins to fucking scream and go nuts for about 3 solid minutes.
It goes on for a long time.
3 minutes of her just fucking throwing her head and arms and body around and screaming and agony and pain and whatnot. And and it is like the first time you see that, and the visual of how that scene ends, the final scream, and some of the colors that they have ooze out of her and shit, like, that is why, like, a prime example why I love horror movies. Like, just crazy visuals like that. I'll never get that visual out of my head of her in the subway screaming on her knees and in this hard position in life. I think the movie just spoke to me because we've all been through bad breakups. We've all been through our good and bad relationships, but this movie really turns the volume up to 11. It really doesn't hold back. And I understand how you say it's over the top, because I think even the director would probably tell you it's over the top. There's really nothing about this movie that goes by the book. But I think that's why I like it, because it's so different, and there's so much more you could say about it and ways to interpret it. But I don't know, man. I just enjoy this one. I think it's a lot different, and I enjoyed what different it gave me. Yeah. Where I think is with you, you were probably like, this is way over the top and probably a bit overrated. Am I right?
Yeah. Let me first of all, let me say this movie on IMDb has a 7.4. So that if anybody goes by that, which is a great score. So maybe I'm just the wrong person, but see, I looked at this movie a little differently than you did. See, you looked at it as a breakup type movie, or situation. Definitely. And I didn't look at it like that at all. I thought that whatever it was that she was messing with had control over her. That's how I feel. I don't feel like breaking up with Sam Neill was actually what she wanted to do. I felt like she was compelled. So that's a little bit, that's, you know what I mean? Because, and let me explain to you why that is that not only did she break up with her husband, but she didn't want to have anything to do with her child. And I don't think any person, any woman in their right mind is going to give up their child because they don't love their husband anymore. So I feel like whatever that thing was, I don't know how else to put it. You know what I mean? It had some type of mind control over her, and that's why, you know what I mean? So I don't feel like it was she really wanted to be away from this person. I mean, I got the idea that like I said, it had some type of control over her. So I don't know. It's funny. It's funny how the movies can do that to us. You know what I mean? You see one thing, you see it one way, I see it another way. You know what I mean? But let me just say, this movie gets a 7.4 on IMDb, and I would give this movie a solid 2.5. Solid. So, and
he's not rounding up to 3, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I'm rounding up to 2.5. No, but I mean, it was so incongruent and weird. And like I said, I definitely saw the art trying to be made in this movie. I really did. You know what I mean? Like when she, the subway scene, as bonkers as the subway scene is, she was carrying a bag and it had a gallon of milk in it, and she was flopping around and it was breaking and things were, it was just spewing everywhere, and you know what I'm saying? So I saw the art in it, but I just didn't care. You know what I mean? That's just how I felt about it. You know what I mean? Maybe on another...
I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah. I do. Like, I understand. Like, I think it's just the fact that it's just so different for like a movie. Like when I first
I
watched
got
this,
you.
I
I
was
got
thinking
you.
the same. I was thinking possession movie. It's going to be
Right,
another
right.
Exorcist, another something like that. And then when I got what I got, this kind of supernatural, crazy, batshit, fucking with weird characters that do very weird things. Like I think it's just I enjoy how fucking crazy it is. That's
Yeah,
definitely a
I
thing.
got you.
Like
Yeah,
if you're gonna go
I can see that.
crazy, don't hold back.
Yeah,
Just go
yeah.
fucking crazy.
Right, right. Just, yeah, just Kathy Griffin it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. If
Yeah,
you're gonna go crazy, just do it, man.
yeah.
Don't
That
don't
makes
even
sense.
think twice about it. But yeah, this is one I'd actually be very interested to hear the listeners'
Yeah,
opinions on.
yeah.
I would love to know what people think. You know, cast the deciding vote. Is it a 2.5? Is it a 7.4? I'd actually give it higher than a 7.4.
Nice.
So
Damn. That's crazy, man, because we're usually right on, you know what I mean, right on track with each other. You know what I'm saying? So it's amazing that movies can do that. And that's what makes this movie worth watching, right? You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
You're going to see one of two things. You're going to see a masterpiece, or you're going to see something that other people you need to see with other people so you can laugh. That's just unbelievable. I mean, like I said, it surprises the shit out of me.
exactly, and it's the way it's like I said, there's so many ways to interpret it. Like I didn't even think of how you like I never really even thought of the child in the movie, but you're
Mm-hmm.
totally right. And coming and obviously you're a parent too. You know,
Right, right.
I don't have a kid that I know of. But
That you know
you know
of. I hear you.
that yeah, I got a kid. I got a kid in Mexico somewhere, fucking growing up and getting into horror. But
Right.
fucking, you know, at the same time, it's just like I agree with you. I think it's cool that we can interpret these movies in different ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It is weird we're on the same page with so much stuff. This is kind of like the reverse with The Strangers. The one that I
Right.
love and you hate is this one, but the
Right,
one that you
right.
love and I hate is that one.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess everybody
Horror's
has
funny.
the one movie where they were like, what? You know, but
no doubt.
it is
No
what
doubt.
it is.
Yeah. Well, I hate to cut this short, man, but I got to go back to work. Yay.
Oh, dude, no problem.
So maybe
man.
we're gonna have to. I think we're gonna have to do a part 2, John. What do you think?
Yeah, man, we could do
Okay.
the body count continues for sure.
Sure, let's do that. But yeah, man, this has been a good time. Like I said, there's just too many movies to talk about. There's too many movies on this list that we still haven't even touched it. You know what I mean? So yeah, let's do that. But I guess we'll talk about it later. We'll get together next Friday and we'll try to pump out continuous episodes as long as we can. You know what I mean? Every week or at least every 2 weeks. We've been kind of slacking, and last week we had that mishap. So, but yeah, man, it's good talking, and I like I said, I hope to talk more about 1981. And I think we might want to do this on a regular basis, man. Talk years, because this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, the other year I'd want to do is 85.
All
Because
right.
85 is like my favorite of all time.
All right, cool. I'm down. So, all right, brother. Well, I hope you have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Dude, absolutely. You too. Have a
All
good
right.
one, my
All
man.
right, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Peace.